So today we're going to be adding in the negative space acrylic painting portion for this project. Using the same paint colors that you established in your color palette yesterday, you're going to be painting in just the negative space, and this time this layer is going to be much more opaque and less of a glaze than the previous layer. So I'm working with the same colors that I had, a periwinkle blue, a light teal, and I'm also adding in my third color of a navy blue, just because I think I'm going to need some darker values to have enough contrast for this painting. But what I'm doing is just going through and painting in the negative space very carefully, watching the edges and making sure I paint right up to and just along the edge of my traced pen marks. And I'm almost mixing my colors just manually right on my board, and that's giving me a really nice sort of a blended painterly effect where it kind of fluctuates in between those three colors. Again, because I chose colors that all mix and blend together in a really pretty way. They make really nice mixed colors. So for this layer, I am using almost just the pure paint by itself, but if you still want a little bit of your collage to show through, you can add a little bit of Mod Podge, and I'm doing that in some areas but not in others, just depending on where I want the details and the focus to be. So I'm going to speed this video through and work very quickly so you can see from start to finish where I'm adding in. And the areas that have the most detail, I am trying to push those values a little bit darker to make sure that my image has enough contrast to be visually effective from a distance. And you can see as I just speed through how my images and my shapes start to come forward using this negative space painting method. So I've gone through now and painted in all of the negative space, and I've sort of used very sort of a painterly, kind of a mixed blended paint look. I've got a little bit of gel medium in parts in some areas of my paint, that way the collage still shows through a little bit in some areas, but it's more opaque in others, and that's totally fine. But what we're looking for is something where you have enough value contrast between the positive space and the negative space around it. So I tried to make sure that in like the highly detailed areas, notice I pushed these values up here towards the top a little bit darker, and down here where there's a lot of open negative space, I could let that be a little bit lighter and just have these really fun, very painterly sort of brush strokes. But now that's just my personal preference. If you like a really smooth, flat color, you're welcome to do that with this project too. I just like the look where it's a little bit more organic. But you can sort of make those decisions for yourself based on your own personal artistic preferences. So this is the stage that I'm at now. What I'm gonna do is let all of this dry, and I'm gonna come back in and do some touch-ups just in some of like the little small areas where I had to use just that tiny brush. Looks a little bit streaky to me, just because that dark blue color I have is fairly transparent on its own. So I'm gonna come back in later and just maybe do some touch-ups on with a second coat, but not everywhere, just the places where I feel like I wanna work on the smoothness a little bit more. And for now, we'll let this dry. A great tip that I do wanna give you for this that I thought is a really nice thing is, since I'm using a glossy Mod Podge, and when I did this glaze, it gave my surface a very smooth, slick texture. One of the things that I really like about that when I'm painting in the negative space around it is if I make a mistake and I accidentally paint over into the positive space and I mess up my drawing, if I immediately wipe that away with my finger, that mark is completely gone, and it leaves me back with that nice, with a nice clean edge that I can touch up. that's sort of a nice thing about the glossiness. I don't know if the matte Mod Podge works the same way, so you do want to be really careful. You don't want to just haphazardly paint your edges, but if you have the gloss, that is a nice sort of a saving grace, as you can just wipe it off in the positive space and it will bring back your nice clean sharp edge. Another trick that I use while I'm painting, if I try to prevent my hand from like resting in wet paint and then accidentally smudging what I'm working on, you'll see in the video that as I'm creating this, I will oftentimes use my pinky and rest it somewhere that I know is dry, like in the positive space, and that will help me lift my hand up off the table where I'm working to prevent me from smudging. And so I can use that pinky sort of as a brace as I'm working. And a lot of times too, I rotate the paper or the board. That way I can rest my hand in a section that I know is dry to make it more convenient depending on what angle of the edge I'm trying to get at. So use those things to your advantage just to help you keep the cleanliness and help you prevent smudges as you're painting.